Howdy, and welcome to the Petrus Development Show, where we discuss fundraising in the religious sector and how generosity and giving impacts both the organization and the donor. From campus ministries to high schools, from universities and faith-based nonprofits to Catholic parishes, we bring you stories, insights, and best practices that will inspire, educate, and inform you to go out and raise more money for your ministry and the kingdom. God bless, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, howdy everybody. Welcome back to the Petrus Development Show. My name is Rhen from Petrus, and joining me today is Tara Doyon, the Director of Operations for Petrus and a longtime fundraiser and fundraising consultant. Welcome back, Tara.
Thanks for having me, Rhen.
Great. So today we're just going to dive right into it. We wanted to talk about one of the scarier topics in fundraising for fundraisers, at least in my experience, and that's plan giving. We know that we're moving into a time in history when a lot of transfer of wealth is about to happen, and plan gifts are the types of gifts that people make from their estate, especially when they pass away and such. Do you have, tell us about your experience maybe with plan giving a little bit, Tara?
Absolutely. So planned giving is definitely an area, you hit the nail on the head, that a lot of fundraisers tend to shy away from because it often involves terms and negotiation tactics that we're just not familiar with, unless you're a financial planner or an attorney that specializes in that avenue of giving. It is an overwhelming and scary topic. However, when we break it down and we look at the reality of working with people in their planned gifts, it's really simple. So hopefully we can discuss a little bit more how we can make this topic not so scary and really applicable to all of our organizations. But I do want to talk about planned giving, a story that really happened to me in the ministry that I was working with. And I think this serves as an example of a couple of different just things that develop within ministry relationships and your donor interactions. So I had a gentleman, and let's call him John, who was a single gentleman. He was divorced and had grown children, and he was retired, and he was a part of our ministry, a part of our parish that I was working at the time, and he gave $5. He wrote a check for $5 every single Sunday. If we ever had an additional envelope collection or something, $5. That's what he gave. Standard. Very generous, lovely person. Wasn't super involved in our parish, but attended regular mass. People knew who he was. He always stopped to talk to the priest outside, when he was leaving. But just kind of your average parishioner in the pew. He gave me a call one day and said that he wanted to talk to me about a gift from his estate when he passed. So I actually made an appointment with him to go out to his house and have just a conversation. Wasn't sure what to expect, didn't know what he was thinking. I knew that he had grown children, but you never know dynamics there. So I went out to his house, and it was a lovely, just brick ranch house, kind of out in the country, and pulled up, had a great conversation, and he started to pull out all these file folders of paperwork and laid it out in front of me and said, I am going to give my entire estate to the church when I pass.
Wow.
And so that's like, okay. And so, but what does that really mean? And so He started to pull out all the paperwork, and that included, he wanted to leave the deed to his property, which was this just lovely ranch brick house. And we live in the Midwest, so, a good price, but not exorbitant in terms of value, but like 50 acres of land that this house sat on. His vehicles, including a classic Cadillac that had been restored. His life insurance, he wanted to designate us the beneficiary of his life insurance. And he worked for the telephone company for years. And so when he retired, he was given all these stock options. And so he had at least $1 million worth of stock that he had just been sitting on that he was also leaving to the church. And to make it even easier for us, he already went ahead and prepaid his funeral.
Wow.
So I went there, just average guy, average house, thinking he's going to leave us a couple $1,000s, which is amazing and very generous, and we're grateful for that. But was totally surprised at the amounts of real estate property, insurance money, stock options that he was leaving for us. He's still alive. He's still giving his $5 every week. But it was just really amazing to have him help him realize that gift. I got to know him better. I got to understand why he really wanted to give the gift to the church, and some things that happened in his earlier life that really impacted him, and why he felt like this was a really important gift. Um, but it really taught me a couple things. One, it taught me to never underestimate the amount of someone's wealth based on just their regular Sunday giving, or what kind of car they drive, or who they are. It taught me that I need to get to know every single person. Every person is an opportunity to just get to know better and hear their story and just learn about their fantastic lives. But it also taught me to really promote this idea of what the generosity can come from people's estates. Most people, they think, oh, I don't need a will because I don't have that much money. Or I guess, I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. Only people that had wills were like the people on TV that assumed to be really rich. I left this
Right.
money in my will. And so I think that was just kind of the mentality that we grew up with. And so if you are in my age demographic, or probably even younger, if you're working in development at small shops, especially, you might think that, people that have wills are only these super, super wealthy. But in actuality, every person should have an estate plan. A lot of people, even these middle class Americans, have the opportunity to give from their estate. Lots of times there's extraordinary wealth hidden in places that we don't even understand, and also our donors don't necessarily understand too. So it is our job within that development driver's seat to offer opportunities and educate them and allow people to be generous at the end of their life.
That is an amazing story. So, yeah, that it kind of feels like one big gift there, right? But there's really multiple different types of
Yeah.
planned gifts within that. You got property, you got you said a life insurance policy, you got
Mhm.
stocks, all these different pieces. So maybe we should kind of go to the beginning here. Now, what exactly is planned giving, and what are some typical types of planned gifts that a nonprofit might encounter from their donors?
Yeah. So essentially, and I don't have the exact definition term, but in layman's term, a planned gift is a gift designated to a charity at the end of someone's life from their estate. Most of the common planned gifts, I think the statistic that we talked about earlier is 85%. 85% of planned gifts are going to become in the vehicle of a bequest. And a bequest essentially is just the cash offering from an estate, once that estate has closed, once that person has passed, directly to the charity. So for example, when we talk about wills, um, John and Judy Smith, when they pass away, they are leaving um, St. Paul Mission $20,000 from their estate. So oftentimes it will come as a specific dollar amount to the charity, but oftentimes it also will come, I think probably it's 50-50 in bequest, it'll come as a percentage. So it'll say, I'm bequeathing 10% of my estate to said organization at the end of my life when the estate closes. And so oftentimes when there's variables, if the person holds stock options, insurance policies, um, things that are not fixed dollar amounts, they would have worked most likely with their financial advisor to make sure the language is inclusive of a percentage, because we know that percentage dollar amount changes with the market. And so someone may have created their will or estate plan 10 years prior. The market looks a little different when they pass 10 years later. So they leave that percentage so it is variable with that market. Other people just sometimes have a more fixed view of what that looks like, and they want to leave a very specific dollar amount. So bequests typically come in, I would say probably 50-50 if it's going to be a percentage or a fixed dollar amount, but it is actual cash gift that will be gifted to your organization upon the person's death.
Right. And sometimes you hear that grouped into what are you might hear called expectancies, right? So gifts that they're kind of designated ahead of time. And we know that sometime down the road they're going to come in like a bequest in somebody's will. It could also be a beneficiary designation. So it's not like on an IRA, a retirement account, excuse me, on life insurance policy, things like that. But these are gifts that could be revoked, right? They could go in and change their will or change the beneficiary designation prior to their death. But those are probably the most common types of gifts that you see is
Yeah.
setting up nonprofit
Property
in that
too
way.
often comes in for a bequest, but again, it's like a very specific thing that's mentioned too specifically for the organization.
Right, exactly. And then there's some other maybe less common, but still out there types of planned gifts. Do you want to talk about just kind of some of those at a very high level? You got things
Yeah.
like charitable lead trusts, charitable remainder trusts. This is really really confusing that there's two different ones. There's a difference there though. Charitable gift annuities. Do you have any experience with any of those?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I would say before we even get into the definitions and talking about this, because this is where it gets tricky. This is kind of like, okay, I understand someone gifting us a gift in their will, a bequest. That's very common, makes sense. But when we talk about
Right,
like annuities and trust, that's when we start to like panic. And honestly, it's not something that I dealt with a lot when I was in active ministry. So we developed cheat sheets, and I think we actually have a blog post that has some really great cheat sheets that defines these terms and really
yep,
allows you to be able to understand them. You're not going to deal with these all the time, and so
right,
unless you're again a financial planner or someone who's dealing with this all the time, or specifically working in plan giving, is going to be a foreign term. So we have developed some cheat sheets for you. So you can go to our blog and download that, so you are not as deer in the headlight when it comes to hearing these terms. But back it up. Most of the people that have any of these mechanisms in place, trust. If you have a trust, I promise you, if someone comes to you to say, "I want to leave you a gift, a planned gift in the form of a trust," I promise you that person is working with a financial planner.
right.
Average Joe is not creating a trust for themselves on their computer and not working with a financial planner, a wealth manager, an attorney. Every single person that is working in these sort of avenues of giving has someone that they're working with. And that is a huge benefit to you and your organization because you don't have to become the expert. So just remember, if someone does come to you with these sort of opportunities for giving, um, don't pretend to be an expert because it's not your area necessarily. Know that they are going to be working with a financial planner. You can have conversations with that financial planner. If you work in an organization such as the Catholic Church, like a lot of our ministries that we work with are, or organizations that we're working with are, they're going to have archdiocesan planned giving offices, and those people are the experts, and so you can always defer to them.
Yeah.
Just don't get scared because it is very overwhelming. But yeah, so charitable remainder trust. Let's talk about that. We again have our cheat sheet, and it's basically just a trust that provides income to the donor or beneficiaries for a set period, with the remaining assets going to the nonprofit upon that person's death. So that is something that someone will oftentimes come to you when you talk about planned giving or have an opportunity, and they might say that this is the sort of trust that they have in place. Charitable lead trust, a little bit different. The income is distributed to a nonprofit for a set period of time, with the remaining assets going back to the donor's beneficiary. So the remainder trust is going to go to the nonprofit. The lead trust is going to go back to the family. So similar, but different beneficiaries at the person's end of life.
Gotcha. So this is usually a situation where they're looking for tax advantages to make a gift maybe right now,
Hmm.
put it into put the money into a trust right now for tax purposes, and then the trust pays out a fixed income to one party for either a set term or for the donor's lifetime. And then at the end of that term or the end of their lifetime, whatever's left in that trust goes to another party. So I think the lead versus remainder speaks about the nonprofit. So if it's a lead trust, it's the fixed payments that go to the nonprofit. If it's a remainder trust, it's whatever's left over at the end that goes to the nonprofit.
Yeah. So remainder,
right?
you think about the end, what's left over.
Yep, exactly.
The other one that is, I think you mentioned, and I think we have on our cheat sheet that we hear that's kind of like, okay, I'm not sure what that is the charitable gift annuity. And that's just basically a contract that donors contribute assets in exchange for a fixed income stream for life, with the remaining assets going to the nonprofit. So these are a little more tricky because that actually means that the nonprofit is going to receive a donation fixed based on this stream of income or the stream of wealth that the individual has. And then again, when the person passes, that remainder is going to go. That again is a little tricky, but remember, you're going to work with a financial planner. You're going to reach out to someone, preferably within your stream of organizational support that can help you understand how these work. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit before we cap off, but this goes also back to understanding your gift acceptance policies and making sure that you have the capability to actually accept these sort of gifts. Some organizations have designations within their gift acceptance policies. We'll touch about this in a minute. That says that they can only accept certain gifts because they just don't have the ability to work with those vehicles of giving.
Right. So, well, we won't go any deeper than that right now. Like Tara mentioned, you can check out the cheat sheet if you go to petrusdevelopment.com/143, because this is episode 143 of the Petrus Development Show. petrusdevelopment.com/143. You can access our cheat sheet that lays out 6 of the most common types of plan gifts, what they are, what types of financial situations a donor might be in if they want to make the type of gift. They'll help you identify who the right donors are to make those type of gifts, and then what type of professionals you might want to engage to help you set up that type of gift. So petrusdevelopment.com/143.
This conference is well worth the entire experience, especially for the faithful looking to build the body of Christ. That's what one ministry director said after attending the Petrus Development's Raise conference in 2023. A fundraising staff member from a different organization had this to say: "I have several years of experience fundraising, and I found the conference applicable to me. I also saw new to fundraising people getting a lot out of it too. There is literally something for everyone here." In 2024, Raise, the Catholic Fundraising Conference, will be even bigger and even better. Join us on the Riverwalk in San Antonio, Texas, June 24 through 26, 2024. Raise 24 will feature outstanding speakers, great networking opportunities, and an authentically Catholic conference experience. Registration is open now. Learn more at petrusdevelopment.com/raise24. That's petrusdevelopment.com/raise24.
So let's talk just a little bit for a minute here about who are your top plan giving prospects. Who are the people you should be talking to about these types of gifts? If you pull up your database, looking at your donors, you mentioned this gentleman who's given $5 a week as a either ongoing donation. That may not stand out to you as, hey, this person's got a lot of wealth, but they give with a very regular frequency. So maybe that's an indicator of a good plan giver.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the giving cycle, we look at someone who is really connected to the organization. We look at two things: the dollars given and the frequency of giving. And in both of those scenarios, the dollars and the amount given and frequency of giving really put you in a position to examine your donor database to see who might be the good prospect for a planned gift. In this case, he did not have a high, what we interpreted as a high wealth capacity. $5 every week certainly was a gift that we felt was generous and appreciated based on what we actually even knew about this gentleman. So we didn't think anything of it. But the frequency that every single year or every single collection for years and years and years, he gave $5, rain or shine, that should have set something off in my mind, and it didn't. So what I really encourage my clients to do when they're looking at their beneficiary pool is to look at frequency of giving. If someone is giving regularly, they're committed to your organization. They love your organization. They have deemed it a priority. Even if the dollar amount is not high, the frequency that they are giving, in my opinion, is a great indicator of their possibility to make a planned gift. Example, this guy didn't have a huge amount of liquidity. He didn't have a lot of necessarily liquid cash. I say that he actually probably did. He didn't appear to be a person that had a lot of liquidity, but his assets were unbelievable. And so we see a lot of people like that. They have really great life insurance policies. They've had good retirement plans. They've had good stock options, maybe from their corporate life or whatever sort of opportunities that they had in prior to retirement. Those type of people sometimes are very unidentifiable by the lifestyle that they're leading. We don't necessarily know what that looks like, and a lot of the generation that we're seeing with this transfer of wealth is the baby boomer generation. And again, I think we mentioned in the next 20 years, we are going to realize the largest transfer of wealth in the entire world, history of the world. $84.4 trillion dollars. I had to make sure I was like trillion. Yeah. $84.4 trillion is going to become available when our baby boomer generation passes in the next 20 years. And that is a huge, huge amount of wealth. And a lot of it is not liquid cash. A lot of it is life insurance policies, retirement plans. If you look at the baby boomer generation, these are, my parents' age, they're in their 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that sort of generation, probably late 60s. Is probably the very beginner of the baby boomer generation. They were raised by parents that grew up in the Depression. They were raised by Depression era parents when people died and didn't have life insurance because the banks had collapsed and corporations had failed, and farming was troublesome. So all of these sort of things. So I know, like, one of the things growing up, my grandmother was like adamant about with my mom, and it's just something that we always talked about, was life insurance. Oh, we have to have a life insurance policy. We have to have a life insurance policy, because that was something that she experienced in her life growing up, that they sometimes didn't have money for funerals or any sort of safety net. So retirement plans and life insurance policies were very, very important to the generation that didn't necessarily have access to them. And so they passed that importance down to their children, those baby boomers. And those baby boomers are the people that are going to be passing the next 20 years and passing that wealth. So we have to learn how to harness that wealth energy and direct it to our organization. We know a lot of people are going to pass and give their money to their kids. That's, they have kids, they have grandkids, and the cost of college education and housing and all these sort of things. It's going to be very important for them to make sure that their children and their loved ones are taken care of. But a lot of that goes beyond just taking care of their loved ones. They have assets that are beyond just simple college education funds. And so we want to give them an opportunity to give that away tax-free. We know in every estate, there's going to be that, the tax man is going to come to every estate plan, and there is going to be a percentage that has to be paid out to various tax entities. Well, we have an opportunity to work with our donors to help them realize that they can give a portion of their estate away to our nonprofit organizations. And instead of paying the government or, paying the tax man or whatever you want to call it, it's actually going to go back into their community to support the organizations that they love.
So what does that look like in practice? How do we encourage planned gifts from donors?
Yeah. So it's simply about having that conversation. We oftentimes tiptoe around planned giving because we because it comes with death, right? I mean, a planned gift is not going to come to fruition unless someone dies. And especially when we're talking about older people that are in our organization realm, we want to be aware of that. We don't want to be like, hey, when you croak, are you going to give us a chunk of cash? I mean, that sounds like in our mind we're thinking that maybe in development, but we don't. We have more tact. We love people. We don't want to see them pass, and so we avoid it because we don't want to become tacky. We don't want to talk about it. But there are a lot of ways that you can be tactful and talk about it and just educate your donors. A lot of organizations that I've worked with, when they talk to individuals about making a planned gift to the church, they don't even think about the church or a parish or organization, if that's the sort of organization you're working with. They think about, your Red Cross, or you think about your alma mater, and they think about their kids and all these sort of things. And when we talk about, hey, have you ever thought about making a planned gift to your church? I always get the same, no, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a really good idea. So we have to give opportunities where we can just share that this should be a possibility. We could do that through a variety of things. Educational opportunities within your church bulletin. I know a lot of churches, and I'm talking specifically now to churches because I think that is a lot of our audience right now, but it can be sort of applied to any organization. Newsletters, parish bulletins, people that are still reading print material from our organization are the people that are going to be passing the next 20 years and leaving all this wealth. So capitalize on that media, that vehicle of media delivery of common writing to share information. So our church bulletins, our newsletters, our organizational newsletters, share what you can do to make a planned gift. Talk about how planned gifts have actually already affected your organization. Share stories of people that are willing to come forward and say, I've made a planned gift. You should do it too. One of my mentors, the late Dr. Helen Gibbons, she was very generous in her lifetime and was very open actually about her planned gift. And one of her favorite sayings was, do your giving while you're she actually said it with this accent. Do your giving while you're living, so you're knowing where it's going. And I think that's really important that we should share with people. Make your plans now so you know exactly where it goes. So when we have an opportunity to talk about that, and people are getting out in front of their peers to say, hey, I did this because it's important for me to direct the money. You should consider it too. It makes people really think, oh, okay, that's a good idea. One of the great things that I have seen come to fruition in the last couple of years with a lot of the organizations that I've worked with are some legacy giving series, planned giving, end of life series. They have a lot of different names, but they all serve the same purpose. I really suggest with the organizations that I'm working with that they break it up into kind of a 3-part process. The first process, especially if you're coming from a religious organization or a church, is all about planning your end of life desires. And what that means, or what it looks like if you're working with a church, is, when do I actually call a priest? Do I call a priest like when I'm like really, really on my deathbed, or am I just thinking about, entering hospice or whatever that looks like? But when do we actually call a priest, and what happens when we call the priest? A lot of the people that we work with in the older generation, they'll refer to calling the priest at the end of someone's life as last rites. But it's really the anointing of the sick, and people actually receive the anointing of the sick when they're not on their deathbed, but when they are sick or they need some healing. But I think sometimes we get confused with that, so we want to make sure people understand what it means to call the priest. And I don't know if you've ever heard this. I've heard older people in my family say, "Oh, they called the priest. He's going soon. They've called the priest in." So having those real conversations of when it's okay to call it's always okay to call the priest, but when we really should be calling the priest. Planning your funeral. What does that really look like? So many people, and I worked at a parish for close to 15 years, and I saw firsthand so many families, when they have a loved one that passes, they're meeting with the person that works with the liturgy, working with the priest, and they're trying to figure out, what songs am I going to have at the funeral? Who's going to be a reader? What does this look like? Those sort of things are are hard to even think about when you're in a state of grief or shock. And so plan it out ahead of time. My dad's been gone for about 12 years now. And before he did pass, we actually sat down and had these really hard conversations about planning his funeral. And I remember going to his house that day that we were going to write his obituary. He had cancer. He knew he was going to pass. We are going to write his obituary and plan his funeral. And I just remember thinking, this is the most morbid, terrible thing that I will ever have to do. And I kind of fought about it. I didn't like it. Um, However, when he actually passed, I am so thankful that we did that because I didn't have to think about anything then. I
Right.
showed up at the church. I had kind of my worksheet that they gave me. Here are my songs. Here are my readers. And here are all the moving parts that require brain power that you don't usually have to offer when you're in a state of grief. And it
Right.
was also really lovely actually when we got to the funeral. I said the opening words and welcomed people, and I just said, I want everyone here today to sit in this mass and realize that my dad had a say in this. I want you to find solace that he planned this and this is exactly what he wanted, and his wishes are going to be carried out. And I want that to be able to comfort you. And I do think that that was really touching for people that loved my father and were in a grieving state, that they were able to have kind of one last opportunity to hear his voice and what was happening. So again, our legacy series talks about that, how we can kind of pre-plan this information that we are able to then share with our loved ones to make it easier for them. The second part of that legacy series is the actual giving portion. What does that look like? What does giving to your church look like? How can your church accept these gifts? What sort of things will your church or your organization do after you have passed? And so we work with a financial planner and attorney that's within our organization bubble and bring them in and have them talk to our people about what that looks like to make an estate plan if you haven't done so. How do you let the people, the beneficiaries of your gift, know that this is actually happening? So all those sort of
Right.
things. And then the third part of that legacy series are I like to talk about care options. What are some care options in your community? Nursing. What is nursing, in-home health care? What does anything that looks like hospice care or anything in those realms of caring for your loved ones and support for your loved ones? What does that look like? And I think when you can kind of package it this way, it takes the focus on we just really want your money when you're gone, but really talks about how we holistically can approach the end of life through a liturgical lens, through a sacramental lens, to make sure the person's actual desires and wishes are carried out.
I love that.
Is your organization looking to construct a new building, add more staff, or grow your programming with a capital campaign? Let Petrus Development guide you through this transformative journey. As a Teach to Fish organization, we empower you not only for today, but for a sustainable future. Our services include comprehensive campaign preparation and management. We'll craft your campaign's identity, plan events, and design compelling materials. Plus, we assist with major gift solicitations, identifying key donors, and coaching your team for success. But it doesn't stop there. We'll help you wrap up your campaign seamlessly, ensuring pledge fulfillment and effective stewardship. We'll even guide your transition into an increased annual fund, ensuring your success doesn't just end with the campaign. At Petrus Development, we're not just consultants. We're partners in your mission. Let's create something extraordinary together. Are you ready to make your dreams a reality? Sign up for a free 30-minute consultation to explore how Petrus Development's campaign services can elevate your organization. Discover the difference at petrusdevelopment.com/campaign. Your dream of impact awaits. Let's make it a reality together. Visit petrusdevelopment.com/campaign.
This brings me back to, well, there's a couple of points there I wanted to touch back on. So you mentioned earlier on that we tend to assume that our donors are thinking about our organization as they're making these plans, right? I know last year at the Raise 23 conference, one of the speakers, Corey Howitt from the Catholic Foundation of New Orleans, talked about planned giving. And he talked about a story of a lady who was a very devoted member of her parish, went to mass every day, was involved in all the different organizations, the Ultra Society, etc. And as she was passing away in her final days, the priest is with her there every day for the last few weeks. All this involvement. And just before she passed away, the local Humane Society came, asked her for a planned gift, and when she did pass away, all of her estate went to the Humane Society. And the priest was kind of shocked, like she'd been involved every day of her life at her local parish, and all of her assets went to the dogs and cats. And the kind of hard fact there is the Humane Society came and asked for the gift, didn't ask for it, so she didn't even consider it, right? Uh, Assume that the churches has money, it's taken care of. They may not need my money, and so you really just have to go in there and make the ask and ask them to consider it, and they get to make the final decision. But just going in there and making that ask is key for carrying those out. And I know it's something that we can be kind of scared to ask our donors about. Like you mentioned, it's kind of a morbid feeling thing. But it really does give them the opportunity to tell us what they want to do with their gifts. Because when they're gone, they can't give you any further instructions. So,
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
organization that I worked at, we got a very substantial six-figure gift that the donors' instructions. This is a bequest. So after he passed away, this gift showed up hundreds of thousands of dollars for to be used for scholarships. And he had put in there very specifically that he wanted it used for scholarships for students of Slovenian descent, which is not a lot of people. So um, it would have been great to be able to talk to him, right, and say, okay, that's awesome. We'll definitely honor that. But if we don't have any students of Slovenian descent, what next? What do we do next? Right, to get that further instruction from him, it would have been great to have that conversation before he passed away, rather than trying to piece it together, figure it out. He had no known descendants that we could find to even ask, his family. So yeah, it's really important to have those conversations, even though it is a little bit scary, a little bit morbid, to go in there and make those asks and talk through those topics.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst thing you can do is realize a gift and not know what to do with it or have the capability to actually use it to serve your organization.
Exactly. So maybe that brings us kind of to a final point here. You mentioned earlier about gift acceptance policies. Why is
Mhm.
that important to have, especially around planned gifts?
Yeah, so it's really important that you have specific outlines within your organization of what sort of gifts that you can accept. And when we've spent a lot of time talking about gifts of cash gifts, retirement funds, distributions from those, trust, all those sort of things. But we really get into sticky situations sometimes when we come to realize some restricted gifts. So, for example, like this cash, but it has a lot of restrictions on attached to it, as well as gifts of property and things. So, I think personally, we tend to have more problems, and I don't know the statistics, and I'm probably just speaking from practical experience. We've had more problems with gifts that people want to leave to your organizations of tangible items. Um, how many times when people pass that they call the church and say, I'm leaving the church my piano, and there are 50 out of tuned pianos that cost $1,000 to move, and we don't need them. Or the organizations, will. I worked with an organization that someone passed and actually left them a parcel of real estate, and they accepted it. Great, this is great, we're going to accept this and we're going to sell it. When they actually went to get the appraisal done to sell it, they realized that that particular area had been previously a gas station and didn't have the proper abatement when they removed the gas tanks and the holding tanks and all these sort of things. Um, and so before they could sell it, they actually had to do some environmental cleanup with it. And they actually lost money because they spent all this time and energy and money having to do the cleanup before they could sell it. So, if they had had a gift acceptance policy in place that said, before we accept a gift of real estate or a particular item, that you have the option to refuse that item, first of all, if it doesn't fit with the organizational mission, but also receive the specific assessments. So, a real estate assessment that the donor pays for, or if it's artwork, that they have some sort of documentation on the value or anything like that, that we make sure we have those sort of things in place. So we're not accepting real estate that costs us more to sell, or we're not accepting or offending people when we say we thank you so much for thinking of us for your piano, but our organization actually can't accept that right now, per our gift acceptance policy. And you have a policy to blame, and that just sets the standard across the board, and it really makes it pretty clear. So if you don't have a gift acceptance policy, call call other organizations within your community. Call if you have parent organizations within your reach. So if you're a parish or a Catholic school, you have an archdiocesan policy, I'm sure. If you don't have one, find one. Work with other organizations that have a long track record of giving. See what they have. Don't reinvent the wheel, but adopt one. It's going to be really important. So to make sure your organization can actually accept the gifts and use them to the benefit of the mission that they are executing.
Yep, very important. Great. One final thing I don't think we actually mentioned I wanted to fit in there is that on average, you're only ever going to know about 25% of the planned gifts that are made to your organization. It's specifically talking about bequests here, I think, before the donor passes away. So most planned gifts that you get are going to be a surprise, and that was true in my experience working in ministry. And so all you can do is put the word out there, mention
Mm-hmm.
planned gifts all the time, ask people,
Mm-hmm.
and you probably won't know the results of all that effort. Maybe not even the whole time that you work there, right? They'll be coming in for
Mm-hmm.
decades.
Yep.
In my experience, most of the people that did tell us that they were making planned gifts were in their 40s. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
decades and decades away from realizing those gifts.
Yeah.
But you just know that there are more out there that will be a surprise that you get as a letter in the mail one day from a lawyer. So
Mm-hmm.
just get out
Yeah.
there and make the ask.
And open your mail. Open your mail.
100%. Great. So if you want to get that cheat sheet on the most common types of gifts that Tara mentioned earlier, go to petrusdevelopment.com/143. Again, this is episode 143. So make it nice and easy. petrusdevelopment.com/143. And there's still a few weeks left. If you want to join us in San Antonio this June for Raise 24, the Catholic Fundraising Conference, it's June 24th through 26th. 2024, like I said, in San Antonio at Hotel Contessa, and we're gonna have lots of great speakers talking about all different types of fundraising topics. It's open to anybody. We're kind of a very specific focus on Catholic ministries, but it's open to any nonprofit who wants to join us and learn about fundraising and connect with lots of other fundraisers from all over. People are coming from the U.S., from Canada, from the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
maybe one or two other countries in there too. So it's going to be lots of different fundraisers from all different types of ministries. Looking
Yeah, we
forward to
have a
that.
really diverse group this year. It's really exciting, and a lot of new people that are coming this year. A lot of people that come to our conferences are the people that we know that come every year, and we obviously love to see them. But I was looking at the roster of attendees, and there are a lot of new people. So if you're thinking about coming, but feel like you don't know anybody, or maybe you're new to development and this is a little intimidating, I just want you to know you're going to be in perfect company with veteran fundraisers, but also people that are coming for the first time too. A lot of first year attendees. So you don't need to feel overwhelmed. I think we're a really welcoming group. We're a really fun group. So if you're thinking about it, reach out to us. We can help you understand how to make this work with your budget.
Exactly. And yeah, like you said, there's a big contingent of people who are in their first year or two of fundraising who are coming, and there's a bunch of people who are 10 or more years of experience of fundraising coming. So
Yeah.
it's a broad mix. So it's gonna be fun to get
Yeah.
together with all those people. So go to petrusdevelopment.com/raise24 to learn more information about that. And registration is open until June 7th, 2024. So act fast. You only have a few weeks left to come
I
join us
know.
there. Excellent. I'm looking forward to seeing you in San Antonio, Tara.
Yeah, I know. It'll be great. It's a time when we as a staff love to come together because we all get to see each other in person as well. So It'll be fun.
Exactly. And I'm not much of a city person. I like to be out in the woods far away from people, but I would say San Antonio is probably my favorite city I've ever visited. We did the conference there 6 or 7 years ago, and
Yep.
it was just awesome. We're going to be right on the river walk, which is a great ambiance, great atmosphere, lots of fun, great restaurants. You can't beat the Tex-Mex. So
Yeah.
I'm looking
Looking
forward
forward
to that.
to it.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, Tara. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Rhen.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
I'm so glad that you could join us for this episode of the Petrus Development Show. Do you know anybody whose ministry needs to take their fundraising to the next level? Please pass along this show to them. And if you haven't already, take a minute and do 3 things. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you like the show, give us a 5-star rating and leave us a review. And check out our website, petrusdevelopment.com. Your ministry and the kingdom need good people doing great development work, and your donors receive just as much benefit from giving as your organization does from receiving. And as it says in Luke 5, cast your nets out into the deep. Be bold and the Lord will provide. God bless, and we'll see you next time.